My name's Carrie. I'm your senior organizing manager, and I am not your resident tech guru, as we are learning tonight. But really glad that you are all here tonight. Just want to give a quick thank you to everyone who joined us for Lobby Day on February 5th. Over 100 of us came through a snowstorm to have over 80 meetings in 35 different legislative districts. So we really did some amazing work. Thank you all for listening to us talk about it and all of you who came. We're so proud, and we will send out this video in a way that you can actually hear it because it's very cute. So glad to have you here. Just a little bit of housekeeping as we get started. Um, as always, this is a webinar setting, so we'll have a Q&A, but not necessarily a live chat for everyone. Um, we will have some education session, and then we'll go into a panel discussion, and then you are welcome to ask your questions throughout, and we will get to them as we are able. So super excited to get started with you all tonight. It's going to be a really fun evening. So first, I want to bring on my colleague, Nilu Jenks. You know her, you love her. I did not even bring her bio because I think we know Nilu at this point. But Nilu is our political director and has been absolutely pounding the halls of Olympia to get our bill in some really good positions. So I am excited for Nilu to tell you about where our bill, the Washington Voices Act, HB 1448 is, as well as just a little bit about where our bill has been, what the road has been like, and where it's going. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Carrie. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. We're, having a really exciting ledge session, and I thought, we've been getting some questions. What does pro and con mean? So I thought maybe I'd follow the life of a bill just a little bit to help you all understand where you're making impact along with your lobby day. So first, you look for a representative to sponsor your bill, and we're very lucky to have Representative Mia Gregerson as our primary and Representative Daria Farivar as our second, and found a bunch of other sponsors, more we've ever had, 28, which is super exciting. You should definitely thank any of them if you haven't already and they're your representative. But from there, once you have a bill, it gets allocated to a committee, and there are many committees. There's an education committee, there's there's like 30, I don't even know how many there are. And ours is related to elections. So the bill gets allocated to, or referred to is the phrase, to the House state government, because it's a House bill, it's not a Senate bill, to the State Government and Tribal Relations Committee. And so then you hope the chair, for us it's Chair Representative Mena, who is a co-sponsor as well, will pick you for a hearing, to give you a hearing. My son was just a page in the legislature. If anybody has any questions, it's a wonderful experience for anybody 14 to hasn't yet turned 17 yet. And he said, these chairs have a lot of power, and they do. And we're very lucky to have our representative, a chair, choose our bill to give it a hearing. And that's one of the first places we ask you, hey, please write your representatives, please write this specific committee where our bill has been referred to ask for it to get passed. We also asked you to write for a hearing as well. So once you have a hearing, that's where you can make public comment. A lot of you watched the testimony, signed in pros and cons. After that, you hope to get an exec session vote as well. So then they pull you to that. They don't have to, and then they vote to pass you out of committee, do not pass. We got a majority vote to be passed. And then the next committee is the Appropriations Committee. And that's where we're now. Not every bill goes to appropriations. Some bills can skip it if they don't have a high fiscal note. So appropriations is where they decide, are we going to allocate money for this in the budget? And, in a very serious budget year, like there's definitely some issues, the deficit in our state, it's a serious conversation. So that's where we are. And you have to have a fiscal note less than $250,000. Our bill did not. The Secretary of State determines the fiscal note. This is an elections bill. And so it had a hearing on Saturday. I will say that your representatives are working hard through the weekend. Staff is working into the evening. Last night, appropriations met till 9 p.m. And so they on 9 a.m. They met on Saturday. We were done by about noon. That's where you also wrote pro and signed in pro and testified. I testified with a couple other folks, and we have an exec session hearing today. So some exciting news. The exec session is they're caucusing right now and having dinner together. They're going to wrap up at 7 p.m. We're going to drop a link in the chat if you want to watch with us to see whether we get voted out of appropriations and move on. It's a little bit nervous for me right now. And I think all of us, you'll find are a little I shouldn't speak for everybody, but for me. And then if we get voted out, we go to rules. Rules committee, you need somebody to pull you out, one of your representatives. And then it will go to the floor. Generally, they don't pull to the floor if they don't think a bill will pass. And that's kind of it. And if you get through to the floor and you vote it out, this all starts again in the Senate. So you start in their Senate, their government, elections committee, go to their appropriations committee, which is Ways and Means, their rules, and then their floor. So that's why we keep asking you all, sign in pro, different committees, different steps in the process, and different representatives are in different committees. So different ones, depending where you live, become like more elevated in the process. So thank you all from like all the parts of Washington that you're showing up to support this bill. All of you are very important and have really made a difference. So I hope at 7 p.m. we'll all get to like break out. And I'll be eating dinner then and watching. So I'm really excited for you all to be part of this process too. So that's all I've got there. Yeah, and I just want to say, if it doesn't pass, sorry, one more thing. Remember, it's a hard budget year, and also it'll actually get rolled over into next year. So that's the good news. Like, this bill will come back next year. You were working on amendments with the auditors, one that's come through that we're fine with, for example, on education. So don't be sad. Be excited, actually, really throughout. We're doing really well.
We're doing really well. The bill is really strong. We've seen Neela do some really creative problem solving that has impressed a lot of people. So we're very lucky to have her. And that is my dog yawning in appreciation of you. I want to welcome the rest of our panel to the stage, to the screen. First, I want to bring up Denisse Guerrero. Denisse is the Director of Advocacy and Membership at Washington Community Alliance, working to close the representation gap here in Washington. As a student at Whitworth University, Denisse organized students and advocated at the legislature to increase and expand funding for students in Washington through the Washington College Grant, which is formerly known as the State Need Grant. Denisse began her work with WCA, winning $3 million+ for census outreach, engaging in training a network of 30+ organizations and over 600 trust messengers throughout the state. Denisse is excited to support FairVote Washington's efforts in increasing engagement for democracy across our state and her current city of Spokane. Outside of her work, Denisse really loves to spend the day exploring new local businesses with her son or binge watching reality TV shows and movies, which is the most relatable thing I've heard today. Denisse is here as a representative of the Democracy Coalition. So welcome, Denisse. Thank you so much. Next, I would like to bring on Abigail Leong. We haven't had Abigail on in a while. It's so good to have you back. Abigail is here with the Washington Voting Justice Coalition, but most of her work is with the Communications Hub at Fuse Washington to help local change makers engage their audiences through research-backed storytelling strategies. Abigail is a graduate of Seattle University, where she earned a BA in Communication and Media with a specialization in journalism. When she's not working, Abigail can be found teaching Sir Wheel classes at the School for Acrobatics and New Circus Arts, a local circus nonprofit. I've seen Abigail in action. It's very impressive and it's not a cross you find in politics very often, even though politics is a circus. So you might think it would cross over a little bit more. But welcome, Abigail. Welcome, Denisse. Thank you so much for being here tonight to share a little bit more about your work. So Abigail, I'm going to start with you. You're here with the Washington Voting Justice Coalition, often known as the WVJC. Can you share a little bit about the coalition, how it was formed, who's a part of it, and what its aims are?
Hi, Carrie. Voting Justice Coalition was actually formed in 2017. Their first kind of victory was expanding voting drop boxes. But they really got started in 2018, where they passed the Access to Democracy package, which included things like automatic voter registration, same-day registration, pre-registration for 16 and 17-year-olds, and the Washington Voting Rights Act. And since then, have kind of expanded to work on all things related to voting rights. So some of the bills that we've worked on in the past are the one that restored voting rights to people when they exit prison. We removed the driver's license requirement to register to vote online. We eliminated advisory votes, and we strengthened the Voting Rights Act. So yeah, this year we have a lot of exciting bills that we're working on. Washington Voices is one of them, and I'm happy to be here and talk about them with you.
Thanks so much, Abigail. Appreciate it. And Denisse, you're here with the Democracy Coalition. It's brand new. It just formed this year. Can you tell us a little bit about how it came to be and what its goals are?
Yep. So the Democracy Coalition really came out of convenience, and I mean that in the best way. So we know the democracy space has a lot of players here, a lot of players doing great work, a lot of folks trying to restore and make sure voting access and voter rights in Washington are protected. And so what that meant was that a lot of folks here, a lot of community members were on a number of calls each week getting legislative updates on each individual bill. And so the idea came to just why not bring all of these coalitions working on democracy bills together? We can share out with each other there. There is a lot of cross collaboration already, so this is the perfect time and space for us to be together, to take action together and really support one another. And that's how it came to be. And really, we're hoping that the Democracy Coalition remains as part of this infrastructure to continue supporting bills like WA Voices across, the whole range of voting rights protections and advocacy.
Amazing. And we're so grateful for the support of both organizations and so proud to work alongside you all. Nilu, on that vein, FairVote Washington has endorsed quite a few bills this year. Why did we decide to sort of expand our reach in the bills that we're working on?
Well, one of the things I'm really lucky to do is to go to a lot of these coalition meetings and hear about a lot of amazing bills and from really amazing partners. And one of the things that is important to FairVote Washington is strengthening and expanding our democracy and increasing representation and improving access. And there's just all these bills that were happening that we wanted to be able to support because it is part of our work and our mission, things that we care about. And I'll just throw in also, you should be good partners in society, like show up for each other. I think it might, it's something I think matters for all of us, no matter where you are in society, being part of community, and working together. And Carrie, I know I say this all the time, but teamwork makes the dream work. It's like way more fun that way. So I have loved working with Denisse and Abigail and everybody else in the coalitions. It's really what brings me joy and keeps me energized in this work. So thank you to you both for coming tonight and generally for all the work. I appreciate all of you really quite a lot. And there's a lot of people behind Denisse and Abigail. Like there's just a lot of people doing great work.
It's true. It's very fun. It's a really empowering thing to see us get to join forces and empower each other.
Mhm.
Before we get into the specifics of the bill, Nilo, I just want to kick it back to you one more time to talk a little bit about what were some of the considerations for the bills and how we chose them. Yeah, I'll stop.
Yeah, so the first part, like I said, anything that's strengthening, expanding our democracy, really access for everybody is something that, that's what democracy really is. And a factor just politically, and this is for everybody, like, looking at who's sponsoring, where are we looking to make relationships is another part too. But those are the things that we looked at, like who are we working with? Who should we be working stronger with? And also, where are the democracy bills? Like, that's why the Democracy Coalition was so cool this year. It made it way easier to do that work too, to flag this. And I think that's true for many of us in the coalitions. Like Denisse said, it's just efficient. So thank you for that work. But really, access, representation, strengthening democracy and our voting rights were the biggest factors overall.
It's almost like creating a democracy that works for everyone. It's going to take possibly more than ranked choice voting. We don't like to admit it always. We're grateful to work alongside everyone. Thank you so much. Abigail, FairVote Washington endorsed all 4 of the Washington Voting Justice Coalition bills this year. Can you walk us through the other 3 that are not the Washington Voices Act? And, feel free to talk about the Law Voices Act as well.
Sure. Yeah. And just so people know, I'm a lowly communications person. So like if you have policy questions, don't ask them to me. Save them and email them later and I'll connect you to someone who actually knows things. But I'd also encourage you, like as people, like just knowing there's so many bills out there, like they can be overwhelming. It can seem like you're just learning a lot of policy things, but not knowing where to click in. Like as I'm talking about this bill, I'll hopefully provide enough context for you to recognize yourself in some of them, because all of our democracy bills affect us. We are the voters, you can probably see yourself in a lot of these. Like maybe you have a friend or family member who doesn't have a driver's license, or maybe someone has been in jail or prison, right? If you see yourself in any of these bills, we have lots of ways for you to get involved and tell your story to your lawmakers, because these bills are actually going to affect voters like you and me. So, but let me get into the meat of the bills. So one of the ones that I'm very excited about, because it actually passed the Senate very recently and is onwards, it's flying ahead of a lot of the other bills, is the bill to expand automatic voter registration. So if you've gotten an enhanced license at the DMV before, then you've experienced automatic voter registration where your information is just updated, or you're just automatically registered to vote without you having to fill out any extra forms. But the issue with this is that it's only in a limited number of places. So not everyone is going to get a driver's license. We know young people, for instance, are less likely to have a driver's license. People who just moved to Washington, seniors, Black and Latino voters, they're all less likely to have a driver's license in the first place. And also the truly automatic voter registration is only for enhanced licenses, which are more expensive. I just got one and it was like over $100. So a lot of people opt for the standard licenses. So when you think about who's often left out of that automatic voter registration process, it's also a lot of the people who are behind in the registration numbers and who we want to see represented more. So we're just suggesting that, hey, you have all these processes where people are already proving their citizenship. They're already providing all the information that's on the voter forms. Let's just add automatic voter registration more places. So the places that this bill would give the option to add automatic voter registration services are when people are applying for healthcare through the Health Benefit Exchange. When people are getting their citizenship, right? You gain the right to vote when you get your citizenship. Why not just automatically register people there? And then people who are returning home from prison, which is especially important because when people leave prison, often they don't know that their voting rights are restored. And you have a billion things on your plate there. We've been doing a lot of public education work to try to reach people, but it's hard once they go out into the world and their addresses might change, and it's just generally hard to reach people. So this bill would obviously be a huge help in trying to register people who are not captured through the current automatic voter registration process, especially voters of color and lower income voters who are less likely to be getting an enhanced license, but might be signing up for healthcare or doing other processes where they provide the same information. So that's automatic voter registration. It's kind of a lot. But if you recognize yourself as any of these groups that might not have an enhanced license but do any of these other processes, your representatives would love to hear from you. The other two, there's one that unfortunately is likely to die on Friday. So if that thought upsets you, I would encourage you to make your displeasure known. But this one would increase ballot access in jails. So we believe every citizen should be able to cast their ballot and have access to their voice. And people in jail are actually eligible to vote. Many people don't know that. You can actually vote in jail. Many people in jail don't have any sort of conviction at all. A lot of people are just pretrial. A lot of cases get thrown out. And there are often people who can't afford bail, who are just in jail awaiting their trial during an election season. There are also people with misdemeanor convictions or juvenile convictions, which don't affect your voting rights, that are in jail. Pretty much everyone in jail is eligible to vote, but we don't see people in jail voting in large numbers because it's very hard for people to actually get their ballot, get their address updated so that their ballot can be received in the jail. They don't notify people that there is an election coming up or give them any sort of information on how to register to vote or how to get their ballot returned. So this bill would basically just set basic requirements for jails to give people access to the voters pamphlet, voter registration forms, give them information about when elections are coming up and that they are eligible to vote from jails. So that one is likely to not move forward past the fiscal cutoff on Friday. So if you would like to support it, please do, and let them know that we would love to see it again next year. And the
That's-
last one, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think this is this bill's first foray, so it's made it pretty far for being a first-time bill, I think.
Well, it has been around before. This is not its first time, so
I
unfortunately,
must be
thanks for
confusing
trying
it
to
with
make me
something
feel
else.
better. Well, it is a relatively new bill, but we'd love to get it passed. I think that you all know this working on Washington Voices, anything that costs money, takes a little bit more of an effort, but we're going to continue to throw some weight behind it this year and in future years. The last bill is HB 1223, which would prevent frivolous voter registration challenges. This one's a little bit more wonky, but basically there are some bad actors in other states who have taken on this new tactic. Washingtonians were very lucky. We're kind of free from most other anti-voter tactics that plague people in other states, like illegitimate purges of the voter rolls. But we know that some people are going to try to do things like that by challenging voter registrations en masse, which can strip unsuspecting voters of their right to vote. So to protect voters and elections officials, this bill would just set some standards and make it a little harder for the bad actors to do that. And make sure that voters are notified about issues with their registration if someone is challenging their voter registration through the processes that they are working on improving. Yeah, so those are the three bills that FairVote has supported. There are lots of other bills too, so I will put a link, or Carrie will put a link for you to scroll through and find out what speaks the most to your heart and soul.
Thank you so much, Abigail. I love when I first moved to Washington and started working on politics, the Washington Voting Justice Coalition was one of the first coalitions I was exposed to, and I was so excited to live in a state where such a coalition existed. So I'm so grateful to still be involved in this work peripherally, and thank you for everything you do. Denisse, the Democracy Coalition is supporting 19 pro-democracy bills. Wow. That's a lot of democracy work, which is super exciting. FairVote Washington has endorsed 8 of them, so there's some really exciting crossover there. And 5 of those were recently championed in the Democracy Coalition's Lobby Day, which was a week after ours on February 12th, which was a really exciting, successful day. Congratulations on that. Most of the priorities have a lot of strong overlap, but 2 I wanted to raise up are the language access bill and even year elections. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, absolutely. So the language access bill would lower the threshold. The current federal threshold is 5%. Our language access bill would lower it to 2.5%. That would trigger the need for translation for voters. So, and I'm trying to figure out a better way to explain this because it's a little bit difficult. But if a group of minority language speakers come in and register at a 2, and it's enough to trigger that 2.5% rate, then the Secretary of State would be required to support municipalities in translating materials into that language. And what that would do is, I mean, obviously, language access is huge. It would increase voter participation. I know for my mom, who is primarily a Spanish speaker, being able to access resources, voting resources in Spanish is amazing for her because she doesn't have to, come to me and be like, Denisse, can you translate this? Or, things like that. So that would just open the door for a lot of folks to be able to vote, to read voting resources in their native tongue, the way that we would probably all want to. And then the even year elections bill would allow cities and towns to change their odd year elections, only certain races, to even years. And what that would do is it would increase voter turnout by 2 to 3%. So it would double or triple voter turnout in an even year as opposed, or like what would be in an odd year in an even year, as opposed to the low voter turnout that we're used to seeing in these odd years.
That sounds very exciting. It sounds like more people would be able to access their ballots and remember to access their ballots. We know that there's such low voting turnout on odd years. We know presidential elections tend to drive the most, but when we can make it a little bit more predictable when things are coming and when people are already excited to look at something at the top of the ticket and they can go all the way down their ballot and vote for their city council, that's going to be really exciting. So I know we're excited to see that bill pass as well. It's also in all of our work, we have a lot of shared things, and one of them is that the Secretary of State has not been very enthusiastic about a lot of our work. But there are some bills I believe he's championing, and I'm wondering if you know which bills he's excited about and that we're supporting, or that our coalitions are supporting.
Denisse, do you have any scoops? I have just what I know from his testimony, but
No, I'll let you take this one, Abigail.
okay. Well, so I think one of the bills, the Secretary of State obviously is the office that handles our elections kind of administration. So they are the ones who are enforcing and carrying out all of these reforms that we are taking. So of course we take their any concerns that they have like pretty seriously, right? Because they're going to be the ones who are kind of in charge of making them a reality. At the same time, the Secretary of State has not always been like super supportive of the reforms that we'd like to see. For instance, the Secretary of State used to be, his name's Steve Hobbs. He used to be a state senator, and he was one of the few Democrats to vote against the law that restored voting rights to formerly incarcerated citizens in Washington back in 2021 or 2022. Which is obviously quite disappointing, but now he's the one who's in charge of making sure that those people can access their ballots and know their rights. So he has opposed certain bills related to that bill. For instance, there's a bill that is could be pulled to the floor in the House at any moment, which would restore voting rights to people who are incarcerated in prison. That one he came out solidly against, but there are bills that he's more movable on. For instance, the jail voting bill, because people already have their voting rights in jail, he's more supportive of that one because it's part of making sure that the law that has already passed is carried out well and that people can have access. So I think the Secretary of State is like, he's pretty dedicated to like making sure that the laws that the legislature passed are carried out. But something that he has been doing is his office creates the fiscal notes for these bills. So if their office isn't supportive, a lot of the times you'll see that the fiscal notes might be higher than we necessarily think they should be. For instance, there was a bill that protects people's rights to make like groups of concerned citizens behind bars. The Black Prisoners Caucus is an example. Do things like virtually testify on bills. For instance, our voting bills, like we could have incarcerated people speak about wanting their voting rights from prison, and just protects them against any retribution from the Department of Corrections. That bill, the agencies, which includes the Department of Corrections, but also the Secretary of State, I think they added like a $23 million price tag on that bill. And we're seeing that in quite a few of the bills that we're supporting. Secretary of State, though, does, I believe, support the automatic voter registration bill. Obviously, there are always some caveats and concerns that are brought up, but we're hopeful that those can be addressed with amendments or some discussions with great folks like Nilu and Carrie and Denisse, and not me, because I shall not be talking to him.
I think he's gonna mostly talk to people who play board games, but
Oh,
Nilu,
then we could get along, yeah.
I think so. I think so. Go ahead, Nilu.
In for a board game. So I just wanted to throw out a few things here. One bill that I'm pretty sure he was supportive of was the Meaningful Language Access Bill, the one reducing the threshold to 2.5%. That's one that we supported. It does have a very high fiscal note, but you know, when we were talking earlier about how we make decisions and endorsement, one thing that he's brought up in opposition of our bill is non-native English language learners, basically. And so I was a former ELL student. I should really do better, Denisse, sorry. So, but that's why it was of interest. It's like, yes, we believe in access. If that's a concern, let's make this better. But that is one bill he supported. And there's two other bills. Remember I was saying, thinking about partners, I don't want to be in opposition with our Secretary of State. It's really not great when you want to work on electoral reform to be in that position. So he has a bill, SB 5014, that's concerning election security, that we endorsed, and that one has passed actually through the Senate. The sponsor in that was Banky. And then another bill he endorsed that is Senator Val. These are like by record, not endorsed, request as Secretary of State actually, is a Senator Valdez bill, SB 5069, that is scheduled now for the Senate Committee on Ways and Means. Remember I said the appropriations is where we are now? The Senate companion to that is Ways and Means. And that bill is on even year support for counties to print out their voter pamphlets from the county in even years, just because there is more printing to do. And I think there was maybe one district that didn't get their voter pamphlets last year. So that's a bill, again, where for us, access, education, voter rights, all matter. And so we endorse those bills, and those are both from at request of the Secretary of State. And I believe they were part of the Democracy Coalition bills as well. I don't know if they were formally endorsed, but we were tracking them. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I know we definitely try to find common ground wherever we can, because that's the good work of democracy. So thank you for shedding some light on that relationship. I know it's one a lot of our supporters track, and it's one we take very seriously. Okay, before we open it up to audience questions, I'd love to hear from you all what has been surprising and rewarding about working on democracy bills in 2025. And I'm just going to go around my screen. So I'm going to start with Nilu.
I wasn't prepared for this question. You know, I believe in democracy. My parents are from Iran, and I feel like they have a very good sense of how much democracy and voting access and information and choices matter. And so for me, especially this year, it matters to me to be doing this work and just committed to working on things that I believe in, such as access and representation. And, you know, I love mailing in my ballot, and just came from Massachusetts, and I've never stopped. I moved here, got here just in time for that. And so many years ago. So basically, I just love working on something that I think is in conversation a lot these days and gives me a lot of satisfaction. So shout out to my parents.
For real, shout out to all our parents.
Shout out to the aunties and uncles and everybody.
Everybody.
Denisse, I'll pass to you.
This feels like such a hard question, and it really shouldn't be. I am just gonna say the network of folks fighting to strengthen and like defend our democracy, especially right now, has been just so incredibly rewarding. I know folks are probably feeling a lot of the heavy weight of what's happening around us, what feels like 24/7. And these little, I've been saying this a lot today, like these little things that we're doing, and it's not little working on democracy bills, but these little actions we're taking, like signing in pro and testifying, are pieces of this huge resistance that's happening right now. And that's especially true when it comes to voting rights and access to equal access to voting. Yeah, that's what I'll share. Abigail?
I think something that stood out to me is just how little has changed, like in a good way, in that like I feel like in so many other places, it's just like it feels like the world has been upended and that everything is just like everything's going crazy. But I think it just really affirms like how strong we've been in Washington and kind of the legacy of every single person who stood up for voting rights in our state for the last 100, 200 years. Like that we're still focusing on moving forward and protecting more people's freedom to vote. And you know, that we're not going backwards a single step. We're still, you know, keeping our eyes on the prize. And I think that that is it is great to feel normal in an advocacy space, that we like to vote at home in our pajamas, and we want that for even more and more people in Washington.
I love that. I think that's such a good tagline. We like to vote at home in our pajamas because it's true. It's for
There
me,
is
it's
a bill
often
to remove, there's a bill to remove mail-in voting and eliminate it, and I don't see it going anywhere. So some people will try always in the legislature, but that gets shut down pretty fast.
It's true. I mean, what is my ballot if not paired with my morning coffee and dropped in my mailbox on the way out the door? I don't know. But no, thank you all so much for sharing those things. We have a couple questions from the audience, and I'd love to get to these. Our supporter Eric wanted to know a little bit more about what's going on with the challenges to the bill that addresses challenges to the voter rolls. If you could speak a little bit more about where it is and what challenges and successes it's facing, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, this is where I'm the comms person. I don't really know how the bacon gets made, or I don't really know exactly the prospects of it passing this year. I think that from what I've heard, it's pretty good. The bill was introduced in one form and was rewritten completely, so it switched bill numbers and everything. And I think in doing that, they worked out any things that might have caused issues with our auditors or the people who administer the process of challenging someone's voter registration, which is not a process that many of us are familiar with or hopefully will ever do in our lives. But that bill passed its policy committee and it's in rules right now, waiting to get a floor vote. So as far as I know, smooth sailing. But the best way to keep in track of what needs to be done for the bill is to sign up for our actions and email alerts, and you will be able to see in real time where it is.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm sorry to put the comms person on the spot, but you're doing great. Our supporter Clark would like to know how the Secretary of State determines fiscal notes. Does it have to be backed by supporting analysis?
One would say so. You can look at the fiscal notes and see what they say in there. I will say that, the Office of Fiscal Management checks those and can back them, and you can speak to them about it. We did get a shout out today that we have done incredible work on the fiscal note. Today, we learned that some of the local costs will be dropped a lot because one of the assumptions that has been made about our bill is if this local options passes, that 20 counties will next year have ranked choice voting. That is amazing that a city in 20 different counties. I'm just going to give you guys I'll do a quick trivia. I'm sorry that I can't see your answers, but what California, actually Utah has the most cities with ranked choice voting. How many counties do you think that falls into in the whole state of Utah? Most cities in the whole nation. I'm going to do a little three.
Okay, 3? I was going to say 13.
I felt weird singing. Yeah, I could. All right. And what's the state with the most counties that have ranked choice voting? Well, most counties. I kind of gave it away earlier.
Utah? No, California.
4.
No.
Yeah. So
I'm also not your resident trivia expert.
it's fine. I'm just trying to not waste everybody's time because we're trying to make sure at 7 everybody goes and watches this appropriations meeting. And then I'll say Oregon has had a local options bill, and I'll let you guys answer this one. How many do you think Oregon? How many counties? The max is 4. Yeah, 2. And so the idea that we would have 20 next year is outrageous. We presented that challenge in that local options is being dropped. So what's hard is that he can estimate 20, right? They can say, oh, it's going to be 20 and literally a $33 million fiscal note. And you're like, really? That's kind of wild. But you do have to do some work to challenge it. And there are other offices I've heard the Department of Corrections is also using this freedom of estimating the cost of things. And in a really tight budget crisis year, it's really unfortunate that can be used in ways to suppress bills because it's not meant to work that way. You know, our legislators are supposed to decide, our representatives that we push with our pros and our cons and our emailing and our calling and our, all the things that we do. So it is something that I've been thinking about lately. So, but we're working on it, and hopefully we brought that fiscal note down enough that we'll get through in 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, we're gonna find out. Thank you. Last question for you all tonight. Denisse and Abigail, if our supporters wanted to get involved more with the Democracy Coalition or with the Washington Voting Justice Coalition, what are the things they should do to stay involved with you all?
Currently, the Democracy Coalition has not set up a webpage to follow along. So I will say one action y'all can take is subscribing to the members of those coalitions' newsletters and emails that they send out. So I know, I'm sure FairVote has a mailing list, WVJC has a mailing list. Other members like Fixed Democracy First also have mailing lists, and those are really great ways to stay engaged with what's going on the democracy bills.
Fabulous, can do. Abigail, if we wanted to get involved with WVJC, what should we do?
Yeah, I mean, I have a long laundry list. The Take Action page, I think Carrie put it in the chat, question mark? Yes. The Take Action page on our website is a great place to start. On the left, there is a link to that says today's actions. And that is constantly updating. So you can check back there every single day. It will have sign-in pros for all of the bills that have hearings. It has pre-made letters that you can email or call your legislators on all our bills and more. I don't have all the Democracy Coalition bills in there, but I have like 10 of them, which is plenty for me and probably plenty for you. So you can email and call right now. And I also have our ledge priorities up on our website too, if you want to track the bills and see where they are, or even just be reminded about what they are. If you feel very passionate about any of them and they connect directly to you and you have a story to tell, you can always contact info@wallvotingjustice.org as well if you want to be a testifier or get involved as a volunteer during GOTV season. We'd love to have you. And then we also do have social media. We're at While Voting Justice on Facebook and Instagram. I have stopped using our Twitter, so we exist there, but are not active there anymore. I might be on Blue Sky with the coalition at some point, but that's a decision for a later day. And yeah, if you'd like to connect at all, just send us an email, and we'd love to have you.
Thank you so much. And those are my questions for you all tonight. Thank you so much to Abigail and to Denisse. I'm going to give you a virtual round of applause. Everybody's cheering for you. We all love you. Thank you so much for sharing your evening with us. And thank you so much for the work that you do in the legislature and outside the legislature, because as we know, democracy is what happens between elections. So that's now, and it's for a lot of the year. So with that, thank you so much. I now want to just give like a quick shout out to our own social media. We are mostly active on Instagram, so if you don't follow us there, please do. Everything that goes on Instagram is cross-posted to Threads, so if you are excited about Threads, you can find us there. We are also on Facebook and we're also on Blue Sky, though I can't say that we're as active on those places, but our Instagram stories are going to have a lot of action alerts and opportunities to support this other work as well. So hope you can join us in these spaces. Next, I want to bring on our Executive Director, Elise Orlick.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you so much, Nilu, Abigail, and Denisse for being with us tonight and sharing all about your work. I was a member of the WVJC during that 2018 session that Abigail mentioned, and I agree with Carrie. I'm so happy that we live in a state with such an impactful coalition, and I think the Democracy Coalition is set up to be just as powerful a force for our democracy here in Washington. At FairVote Washington, we are humbled by the trust that each one of you put in us every day to steer and advance our mission. And I hope you agree, after hearing everything we have going on, that we are making progress this year in advancing the Voices Act and in building relationships with the community partners, legislators, and voters that we will need not only this year, but in future years to advance ranked choice voting and create a democracy that works for all of us. For those of you who were not tuning in to our hearing on Saturday, even the Secretary of State's office commended us for being a well-organized advocacy organization before he went and testified against the Voices Act. So your people power, both during FairVote Washington events, as well as our legislative milestones, All of those are a great way to support us, and they are making a difference and they are being seen. But just a reminder that everything we do requires resources. Nilu has been able to make huge progress building relationships this legislative session, in part because she's driving down and is in Olympia and is seen as a visible presence there, which means we have to be paying her for the mileage it takes to get down there. So we ask that you will consider supporting our work by becoming a monthly member. If you're able to give $20 a month, it would go a really long way towards the rest of this legislative session and all the work that we do in the interim. Because as Carrie said, democracy is what happens between elections and is also what happens between legislative sessions. So thanks again to everyone for joining us. And I know many of you will probably be watching the rest of this committee's executive session with us throughout the night. So our hearts and minds are with you. We are all in a shared mental space, hoping that our bill gets out of committee today. I think good thoughts for us.
Thank you
all
so
for
much,
joining.
Elise. Yes, thank you. I would love to bring back Nilu just for 1 second to address a couple of questions that were in the chat that I missed. Sorry, Nilu, I'm really putting you on the spot here, but you had good answers.
I can see them. So Terje, I don't know, sorry, Terry, I don't know how to say your name. I'm so sorry. I wish I could ask. Is any one of you tracking anti-RCV efforts in Alaska? Is RCV safe up there? Have to look ahead. I'm feeling pretty good about ranked choice voting. We defended it. I know it was small, but really Native American voters came out, and I think they'll continue to see the benefits of ranked choice voting there. It's not where we work, however, but Sightline Institute is a partner, and they're doing a lot of work there, and FairVote National is keeping an eye. But I know I think the Republican Party is maybe starting to organize around repeal, so we will keep an eye on that. And so, yes, we have to look ahead, but it's a little bit early. They just voted on it. And I was heartened by the response that came out, and I think that'll grow. Justin McDowell asks, what does the support look like from the superior political parties in Washington, non-Democrat and Republican? We're nonpartisan. I'm not going to weigh in on which ones are superior or not, but there are other parties in Washington. For example, the Cascade Party is one that supports ranked choice voting and has it part of their platform. And the Libertarian Party has reached out to, see if we may be interested in doing some education with their group. I've spoken some with the Working Families Party as well, and we continue to build partnership. The whole point of ranked choice voting is to build a society that works together, give us more choices, more voices. Carrie says it a lot, and so there is work happening and support coming from there. It is a nonpartisan issue, just like we view democracy as a nonpartisan issue, and so we are happy to work with folks on that. And finally, Nick Bierman, sorry if I'm butchering anybody's name. Is there an effort here in Washington to introduce a bill in the future that would support multi-member district representation? So it's not quite something we're working on here. This local options bill is a lot of work to get through, but it is, something that's definitely on the radar that we talk about, that people bring to us a lot. So I can't say that there's an effort right now happening. There are people that talk about it, but I think we're on the road, we're on that path, roadmap. But maybe Carrie can say where on that roadmap it'll be like a little bit, question.
It's a bit of a rural road right now. It hasn't quite been paved yet. People have gone down it, but we haven't quite built the infrastructure. But we work with amazing people. I have an organization called More Equitable Democracy, and multi-member districts and a proportional representation democracy is what they envision, and we are very proud to work alongside them. And we know that these steps of ranked choice voting do start laying the pavement to make those rural roads something we can drive on. Or maybe I should use like a mass transit example. We're laying the tracks. We're laying the tracks for a train to go through, or a bus, pick your favorite mode of transportation. We're trying to make it easier. And it's also something to keep an eye out for as you hear different local jurisdictions working on districts. It's something to really raise to the people organizing that. by the time that project is announced and they're really rolling on it, they're likely not gonna change courses right then, but it's something to bring up and show, hey, there's another option besides at-large districts and local districts. And there's this middle way to have proportional representation. We can now reference that in Oregon, in Portland, and see some really exciting results, and we'll keep seeing more results as the years go on and they get to use proportional representation in multi-winner districts more and more. So they're helping us build that rural road. But it's a good question. Thank you.
Yeah, they're in Germany right now, actually watching their elections, which has been really great. And I answered on the like state and federal level, but Carrie, you're so right mentioning Portland. And I should say that our bill and the Washington Voting Rights Act talk about strong Washington voting rights, allows one of those solutions and remedies if you can't get representation is single transferable vote, which is multi-winner and multi-member on the city level, more on the local level. But if you could share that link and these ideas with people, please do it, because that's how we get there, is education.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. We are exactly at time and we don't want to take a minute away from watching this executive session. So go ahead, change your screen. And thank you for being on this journey with us. We're doing our best to pave the road, resurface it, all the different things so that we can have a functioning democracy that works for all of us. Wouldn't be possible without all of you. Have a happy Tuesday night. We'll see you next month.